bit tired. Did a quiz with my mates, so I had quite a few beers last night. It's weird that we're getting drunk in our like rooms now.
Yeah, I spoke about this recently. It's weird waking up like hungover, but it's quite nice not having to get in a taxi home. So you
That,
just
that's a very good point. I literally roll into my bed and
yeah,
good.
yeah, it all blurs into one, doesn't it? Are you recording now, mate, or
Yeah. I just start recording and then if you incriminate yourself early, I can cut it, or it's fine. I just
mate? It can't be worse than what you said the other day on that on that chat.
I know. You know what? I don't really care. Like, I don't know. There's part of me. It's weird with like the whole. I've always had kind of an issue with like jobs and like careers and stuff, and like in the way that you have to like perceive yourself to be this type of person, blah 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 blah. And I get it because you got to play the game, but like I always know that I'm a well-intentioned guy. I work hard. I know these things myself, so I'm normally quite open and like tell like embarrassing stories and dumb shit that I've done in the past, and it has bitten me in the ass many times. But like,
How long has it taken you to get to that state?
I think I've always been a type of person that has little shame. I don't know. I always think when I was in school, I was always kind of chubby. And what do you do when you're like chubby and you're not getting all the girls? You just like make fun of yourself, like you know what I mean. And that sort of that was my trajectory on life, and I've just carried it on. That's just who I am. So
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, mate, because it's something that I'm not at that state, and I don't know if I ever will be, and it's something that like it's getting a little bit better, but yeah, perception of yourself is something that definitely, yeah, I think about a lot, and particularly in these times when you're around people less, and then you've got less human contact. I do think that I'm kind of like judging how I'm not judging how I'm perceived in these times, but I do when you're on your own, you do always I always seem to think like where am I in the world? What do people think of me? Um, and it's interesting that you say that, and I could tell that when you said that about yourself, that when you said that story, I could tell that you didn't really care, and I think that's an amazing place to be fair. And yeah, I don't know how you get to how you get to that state. If it that's why I was interested to know if you did any sort of like work on yourself, or just naturally you got used to being in your own skin, and then you know
yeah, it's an interesting point actually because yeah, I was very much the same, and I think I still am the same. Like a big passion of mine, a big interest. Like I'm a bit of like a comedy nerd. Like I'm like into like watching all specials, like all that sketches and stuff. Like love SNL and stuff like that. And I'd love to participate in it. And I've done a bit of stand up here and there. But in this space now, I'd love to make videos and be silly and have the room to do that. But the major thing that holds me back on that is because you can easily just look like a dick or attention seeking if
mm,
you're trying to put out funny videos. It's like, look at me. And it's like, it's not that. It's like, I just want to enjoy the craft of engineering something that's funny and well put together. And
yeah,
to
I
get,
agree.
you have
Sorry,
to,
go on.
no, I was just saying, to get to that point, you're probably going to have to make a lot of shit videos. It's an improvement. I feel that.
Yeah, that's an interesting line. I feel like with comedy, I've always looked at that abstractly and thought, you look at a comic and you think he's not funny, and you're quite pessimistic about it, but you can't truly get to a point of being a good comic unless you go through the trials and tribulations of being an unfunny comic. Unless I guess some people are probably just naturally gifted, and I think it's quite interesting when you see people like Joe Rogan, who on the surface you wouldn't think is a funny guy, like he's just like an all-rounder kind of thing. But there's a lot of people that you notice have gone through that circuit, the comedy circuit, which probably ends up building a level of resilience. And I don't care what people think about me, and that's why it's actually something I've considered, even though I don't. Do you know what I mean? I don't consider myself a comic, but I feel like the life skills you'd get from going down that route could be invaluable, because there could be nothing worse than bombing on stage and everybody saying how unfunny you were, and then once you've done that, like what?
Exactly. Your point exactly. I watched Joe Rogan and Chris D'Elia in one of their most recent podcasts, and Chris D'Elia's just released his special. Is one of the biggest comics in the US at the minute, and he said the exact thing that you just said. He was like, I don't care about talking about it. And interestingly, coming back to what I said, they were talking about shitting themselves, and they were talking about levels of embarrassment and how they don't feel embarrassed the same anymore because they bombed in front of like 1,000 people. So they're like, and it's also like a safe space when you're actually doing it in stand up. Quite often, like the beginner shows, there's like the pretty much crowd is all comics. You just, it's more like workshops a lot of the time. There's like 3 or 4 people that have just come in by chance. So that's kind of a safe space, and it's like more when you branch out of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's weird. I've never been interested in that scene actually. Like, I know I said I was kind of looking at it from a self-development point of view, but I never really enjoyed watching any sort of stand-up comedy, to be fair. But it's an interesting one. I respect the comics.
I thought about you because you were quite funny. You were like a bit unusual in the speed dating thing we did with the office girls. And I was thinking, like, when I wanted to talk to you, I was thinking, yeah, that guy's pretty funny. Like, I was going to ask you, like, if you did any.
Do you know what that is, mate? And it's like what it is, and it's when I'm forced on the spot, and there was a couple of questions where you had to be witty. I get a natural defense mechanism where it's like, all right, well, I don't want to try and come up with something witty. This is what I'm thinking about myself. I don't want to try it and be funny and fail. So I'd rather just like be awkward.
Yeah, go so field there. It's like
that's what it is, and it's from I guess it's from a place of insecurity, really, which is quite an interesting way to look at it, because people, naturally that is a defense mechanism I have, and it confuses the hell out of people when I just get really like sometimes sarcastic or just very, very dry, and then people are like, I don't know if you're joking, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm joking. I don't know what's happening.
I get that. Some of my friends, it was so funny in school. Yeah, I was very like standoffish like that. And then when you sort of started to get older, when you start to mix with everyone and people care less about all the bullshit, I became friends more so with more of the popular guys at school because I like football as well and stuff like that. And I remember like a couple of them said to me like, I don't know if you actually like us or not. And I was kind of like, no, I definitely do. It's just like what you were saying. I was being weird and like awkward and like I didn't want to like, I don't know, upset anyone or yeah, like you say, try and be funny and not be funny. So you just end up in this completely different space. Where everyone's just like, that guy's a weirdo.
Yeah,
but trust me, all the best people are in that space.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I would. I've done quite a lot of things where people have always supported me naturally. So I think it is something that in like when you have like a list of things you potentially want to do in life, it is one of mine that's up there. You know, I've still not done a marathon. I've still not done, you know, those kind of fitness challenges. But I do think from a personal development challenge, that could be one that is there to try and do like a stand-up show. But my thing is I'd want to do it with a mate. So we'd both like, you know, like I did white collar as well, the boxing. So I'd want to do it like, you got 10 weeks you put a date in, you got 10 weeks to get a set, and then you go for it, and it's like a challenge that way. I'd be interested to do it, but yeah, that explains why on that dating video really is like when someone, what was the question? I actually spoke to Zach and Joe about this on the podcast I did with them. I said, what would you say now if I said to go bring back an item from the kitchen that best resembles you? And like, yeah, I overthink those things, man. So I just result to weirdness. I overthink everything.
I didn't expect that. I got some chips. I was literally like the one thing. Oh, shit, I guess that's.
But when you spoke, it resembled your personality. Like you, I think it. Do you know what I mean? Like you were able to say, "Oh, thick chips," because I'm thick or whatever. Like I think your personality was transcending. But when I get into that, mood, and it's like it's not really anything, is it? It's like the mysterious guy.
Yeah, well, you talk about self-development a lot.
Yeah,
brings onto your podcast, the dog days. I mean, a bit about that, like, because my journey into sort of content creation and stuff like that is probably happened in the past, maybe like 4 years. What about you? How did you get to that point?
Sorry, into entrepreneurship, did you say, or in?
Yeah, into that and like, and doing your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, so to be fair, if I think back with entrepreneurship, when I did actually, it goes back historically. My dad is it was kind of, when was it? So like year six, he or year five, he basically imported Pokemon from America, and it was really like unknown here, and it was really hard to get hold of. And I would go as far to say that he would have been pretty much one of the first people, I think, to import Pokemon to the UK. And he yeah, he had a dealer in America who was like, you need to take this shit. It's selling like wildfire. You know, get this now because it's going to blow up or whatever. So he actually started selling it, which was quite embarrassing, in my like school playground. It's fucking dodgy when you think about it, but it's funny. I respect it. And then it kind of evolved. We used to go to like fairs on the weekends. He ended up getting a few shops, and so I was always around. Like he had quit a decent job to do that. He was selling Beanie Babies as well, and he's making a lot of money out of that. So that was kind of the first exposure I had to entrepreneurship. So um, that kind of stuck with me, I think, as a child. I used to sell a couple of like things at school, like Live Strong bands and stuff like that, but never like anything sort of serious. Um, but then at secondary school, the only GCSE, I only got four GCSEs, and yeah, I was really bad at school, and one of them, yeah, the only thing that really interested me was business studies. And then like as we as I went to do like a college diploma, I did like a BTEC business because I didn't get enough GCSEs to do A levels. And then now I discovered that I didn't like maths, so I went into marketing. And it's not really until university the Social Network movie came out, and it just kind of like, I was obsessed with it. I was everyone, I think.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, I think it got in a lot of people's heads, and people started dreaming. I would say dreaming the impossible. I think people started, like, I don't want to knock down people's expectations of life and just say that, I was deluded or whatever. But I genuinely thought back then, like, oh, it doesn't look too hard to create $1 billion app. And I think, and actually Gary Vaynerchuk talks about it a lot. I think he mentions this as well, that a lot of like people just suddenly thought overnight, entrepreneurs like the new rock star, I want to create a business, I want to exit, I want to do this. And I was kind of like guilty of that. I battle a lot of sort of internal like, I don't know what the word is. I battle a lot of things internally in the sense of like self-doubt and self-criticism and confidence issues. So to have these thoughts that I could create $1 billion business, but then to have like a complete lack of sort of like self-esteem, confidence, whatever, it was like an unrealistic balance in my head. But back then, what was my first thing I wanted to create? Back then, I wanted to create I've Lost Something.com, and that was essentially going to be like the biggest lost and found database in the world. So that was like my first idea that I thought was going to make it. I remember being like 18 and then contacting my uni and saying they had to help me do this and all this shit. It never really took off. I had a lot of things back then that never really took off. I was just always like writing them down and obsessing over them, but never executing. I think a lot of us at that age get obsessed with ideas. Some people still get obsessed now, but when you have like an idea and you just guard it.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I was kind of guilty of it back then. But then I think the reason, so the Social Network film was the sort of catalyst, but there also I saw two stoners in my halls were like, yeah, we're making a blog, bro. We're doing this, bro. And and I knew they weren't going to do something, but it kind of hit a fire like, fuck it. If they're going to try and do something, I need to try and do something. So I think the first thing that I actually made a website for and actually like got a supplier and shit was for it was called lucidmatcha.com, which was essentially just a website where we were drop shipping like tins of matcha. Do you know matcha tea?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so kind of went down, that route for like a year, like on and off, just making the website and then complaining that no sales were coming and stuff like that. But then at the time, I just took a job at Unilever, and that was like a safe corporate job after university. And I don't know if I'm answering this right because I'm going on a bit of like a timeline. I'm just trying to think, but I've just like always been exposed to like creative projects and always wanted to do them, but then I've never been like, yeah, I've never been confident enough to actually do it. I've done the like sort of quit job phase. I've gone into like a freelance phase, but then I've never really been able to succeed in turning like one of these creative projects into a full-time job. And that's why like with the podcast, that kind of satisfied the entrepreneurial void, in the sense that like I always thought that I wanted to create a business, but what I think it was is that I wanted to create something that had a bit of depth and had a bit of meaning, and also like didn't um I didn't need to worry about it being a business. It could just be something that expresses myself as a person, or helps me express myself as a person, and it's something that I can like build as you would a business, but it's more just like a yeah, just a project, so to speak. I think that a lot of people, and I was one of them, and I don't think I am one of those that needs to set up like a multi-million-pound business. You never know what could happen in your 30s or 40s. You could get more confident and whatnot. I'm hoping that maybe you do, but um yeah, the podcast was, I realized once I created that, it was like, oh, this is fine. Like I don't need to I'm not necessarily an entrepreneur. I just need to create something which expresses myself. Um, yeah, I'm kind of waffling. So if you could ask me another question.
Well, you say
I'll be honest with you, man. I'm in a like quite a like, yeah, like a negative headspace these last few days.
Well, I thought it was interesting you say about how you didn't have maybe the confidence to do these things, but you have done like the tea thing, and you have done them. Like I think people assume all the time, maybe like you have as well, that I'm super confident and just back myself and everything. But like I have such fear, and I don't know. I hate, like, even before like coming on this call with you, I'm so nervous. I talk to someone and it's fine. Like before the dating thing, I was so nervous before everything. I never want to do anything. But for me, and it sounds like it is for you a bit as well, it like outweighs the nerves and like the feelings of like lack of confidence, like that desire to have that podcast, or that to be an entrepreneur. For me, because I left uni and got a job at Bulb Energy, which was like one of the fastest growing startups, really like young, hip office in East London, and I just hated it. Like it, just putting numbers in a computer all day for someone else, that didn't really equate to anything in my mind. And for me, it's more about like all the self-doubt and the fears and stuff. Just still, I'd rather have that side than the side where I'm stuck putting numbers in the computer for someone else.
Yeah, it's good for you to bounce back. I'm used to, like, with the podcast, you're used to like my position on the podcast is to snip in with like questions, like quite direct questions every now and then. But I've never really been in like the flow of talking about myself too much. But when I think about it, I'm not really painting the full picture. If, for example, when I was at Unilever, I remember, this is like the sense of sort of like lack of confidence or anxiety I would have then, and it was quite a big corporate job. I'd literally be walking down like the corridor and thinking people were looking at me, and I'd be in like meetings, and I'd never want to put my hand up. I'd never want to like, speak out. And I think the podcast was something which, yeah, it filled the entrepreneurial void, but B, at the beginning, when I first pushed that record button, I literally was so petrified. We were just laughing, when you nervous laugh with your friends. And how it started was like three of us who basically, I was actually, I'm all over the place with my explanation of my timeline and whatever, but when we started it, all three of us, so Ollie, who is a guy, one of my best friends that I've known from secondary school, he had just left his recruitment company where he was like top biller for like years. He was really established at this recruitment company, and yeah, he was creating his own company. And then Junior, who is a professional footballer in Malaysia, nicknamed the Malaysian Bex. He was actually a superstar in Malaysia because he was the first like dual heritage Malay and like European player to ever play this, and that started a trend. So, and he was covered in tattoos, so he became like he went from you said you're local, but he went from playing in like Guildford to being a international, well, like an Asian superstar, and that career was kind of like cut short due to injury. So already you've kind of got the foundations for like a podcast where it's like three people. So myself, who was at the time trying to create another company. So the three of us were in a place where we hadn't made it. We wanted to make it. We don't know what making it even means. So why not create a podcast where you interview other people who have been successful in their own right, or they've got a life learning. So essentially, if we say the dog days are the days of uncertainty, where you want to you want to get to the other side, but it's really, really difficult, essentially. And we were in that place, and we wanted to interview other people who had made it to help us get through the dog days, but then also to inspire other people who, our listeners on the podcast who might be stuck in a job they don't like, or they might be considering starting a creative project, or they might be considering starting a business. We wanted to basically give them something that was entertaining, and it wasn't a self-improvement, and it's not a self-improvement podcast where and these podcasts serve their own right. They're very, very good. But for example, Aubrey Marcus podcast, is a dude that sounds like the coolest guy in the world. He looks like he's got it all. He interviews high power Americans, and they're all about, fucking get up at 4 a.m, blah, 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 blah. And our podcast is a more sort of modest British approach. And it's more like, you're going to get pissed on a Friday night and you're going to ruin your weekend where you wanted to do all of your things. That's okay. Here's other people that have also lived that lifestyle, but here's what they've ended up creating. And that's essentially the podcast we try to produce. And it's as we've as we've gone along with it. And I think you might get these things when you're putting a lot of time into I don't know what this dropout mag, this is what it's called, isn't it? Yeah, when you're putting a lot of time into something like that, sometimes it might feel like nobody's, looking, or nobody's watching. Sometimes you just, the irony of the Dog Days podcast is that we've had the Dog Days with the Dog Days podcast, in the sense that, I look at the numbers and I'm thinking, oh, how do I get it to more? Is this really impacting people's life? And, sometimes you get some really good messages where people are like, that was a great episode. You asked some lovely questions. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. And I think that's where we're at with it. I really enjoy doing it. I love doing it, but you just always, for me as an individual, sometimes I'm hard to please, and I don't give myself enough credit. So I'll always look at it and think, is this something that we're going to be able to have? Is it going to be a stream of income eventually due to ad revenue? How do we grow it? I personally, when I listen to other podcasts, some of them I know are better than ours, but some of them that I know are making money are they've just hacked the algorithm. They know how to do it properly. When they created their podcast, they were very good at promoting it in the first month. And if you've managed to do that, iTunes and Spotify, they rank it in the new and noteworthy section. And then if you're in that section, your podcast, as long as you upload every week, is pretty much going to be getting good numbers. So there's things that we've learned, and there's frustrations we've had, but ultimately it's a project that I'm really, really proud of. And when I started it, I was petrified of being in front of camera. I was petrified of interviewing people. And then, a year later, I've done interviews with LBC. I've done interviews with Sky News. I've done a lot of different things, and it's all really credit to starting a podcast, which the biggest outcome for me was just taking myself on that sort of content creation journey and allowing myself to have calls like this without being petrified.
Yeah, I definitely relate with a lot of what you were saying there. I am fully in the Dog Days in terms of, always thinking producing. I think a big thing for us is I produce this content that I think is good. I'm proud of. I'm very proud of what I've done. But then the numbers get me down. And then when the numbers are down, one of the few things that gets me through, like you're saying, is the odd message from people I've worked with, or that I've listened or watched or read, and say, oh, that was really good. And a lot of the time it's just one person gives you that boost where you're like, okay, I'll carry on. I mean, me and Tom, who I work with, he's my best friend. We've started this together. We go through oh, that's really good. Super proud of ourselves. The next day, the numbers are shit. We go through little phases. We went through a phase just before Christmas of being obsessed with money. We were like, how will this, let's stop the shit. Let's be real tough on ourselves. Let's be savage now. How are we going to self-sustain through this project? Whereas then other times we're more from maybe an artistic thing, oh, that was so rewarding. I enjoy this so much, blah, blah, blah. And we seem to go to and from, and it's often triggered probably by someone saying something or seeing someone else. So, say for example, this was done, and then your stuff blew up. That would probably trigger me to be like, "What the fuck?" Like, Ian's now I need to do it, or you know, in the same way that if you like then hadn't blown up but had a conversation or podcast where you were talking about how much this means to you and how rewarding it's been, then I'll probably be like, "Oh yeah, me too." So it's
yeah. Do you know what? Like for me, it's not. You know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have lots of money because I certainly don't. But the podcast, it's validation, isn't it? It's not like, okay, maybe in some cases, and maybe it is about I actually need a salary and whatever to pay my rent. But for me, that's like you can get a job and you can get a salary from other means. But for me, it's like, how do you validate something that you put a lot of attention in? And I guess we live in a society where you either get validated by how much you get paid or how much followers you have, essentially, if you're creating a creative project. So for me, it's like I obsess over the listeners. I think is really the stat of a podcast that you should obsess over, because essentially that's how many people they're your customers, even though they're not buying anything of you. And that's something that troubles me. But then also what troubles me, if I'm completely honest, is like, you know them as well. Like if you get someone like Zach and Jay on there and you interview them, and then it's like, wow, look at their look at their social media profile. How do you convince a guest like that, when they see your house, like your Twitter, your Instagram, like, and they're lovely guys, so they didn't give a shit about that. But there are some guests, and rightly so, they get contacted by different media publications or podcasts or whatever, and they'll be like, well, what's the point of that? Like, why would I go do an interview?
Yeah, that's what I've been working on, like all these Connect conversations. So now I've like we made all the thumbnails to do clips on YouTube, just for the matter of we can label them as they are, and people aren't necessarily going to watch. So say we put this like, I'll connect with Ian McKenzie. People will be like, "Who the fuck is Ian McKenzie?"
Yeah, why too fucking right they will, because no one knows who I am, geezer.
But if I put something about dog days, like reveals this or like says this, then they might be more like, okay, this guy, don't know who Ian McKenzie is, but he said something that's interesting or that sparks something in their mind. So that's what I'm going to try.
With that structure you've got, so it's quite interesting for me. This is something that's really getting me like a prime example, and I guess to the extent this weekend, but like last bank holiday weekend, 4-day weekend, those things are torture, because in my mind I'm like, goals, all right, but how do I just exist and just chill out? And it's like, okay, I want to do this, and then if you don't do that in 4 days, you feel like scum at the end of the day. Like I felt like, what have I done with these 4 days? And the reason I say that is because like I got caught up making one sort of video for my podcast. So my question for you is how do you structure the content you're going to create for this? Because I'm doing everything off the whim, and I think that's why I've not been able to like consistently create things. So like I do one episode with Zach and Jay so far. I've only made one video, but I should essentially, and that's the problem with social media, is you could always make more content. But like, how do you structure your interviews? So do you have a template of what you're going to do per interview, your output?
I mean, that's developed even since we started this. So it just started because we were like, oh shit, we featured all these people and like did all these things, but we're in isolation now. How can we do it? And we're like, okay, we'll just do Skype calls, which has been interesting because I've met people like you, and like the reach becomes far greater, and it's actually easier to get people because you're kind of like, give me 45 minutes of your time or an hour, and people are like, yeah, I'm at home. But yeah, the process is like we're doing now. Talk with someone, record it, and then obviously edit it, pick the clips out. So I'll pick some minute-long ones for Instagram, and then longer ones, probably like 4, maybe, like probably 2 to 4, and then upload them to YouTube and just isolate that. But no, I haven't released any clips yet. I just did, because I wanted thumbnails for them. So we just did all of that, and I've got them all uploaded to YouTube. I just need to put them public. But Friday and Saturday are notoriously bad for releasing stuff. Even when we're in isolation, I thought those rules would go out the window. But like I said, I drunk last night, so people are still kind of keeping to that Friday, doing stuff. But
yeah, I think I've made that error a few times actually. Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, it definitely is an error, because we've wasted good opportunities to release stuff, and people just don't care. I mean, I feel like we're a little bit stagnant now. Like I said, we've had the website up for probably like 2 years, and when we first started it, everyone loved it because it was new and interesting. And people go off stuff very quickly when you're not innovating and at the forefront of coming up with new ideas. And again, every time we come up with something new, it spikes a little. But like you said, I do a lot of stuff on a whim. Like I'm quite impulsive, and yeah, that's tend to be how I work, and it's frustrating because I don't think enough about things like the algorithms and stuff like that. I probably don't think or know enough about that stuff, and it's frustrating because you're like, I'm creating all this stuff, but it's just in one place. It's like, how do I get people? I mean, with the clips, I'm kind of thinking, okay, if I get these clips, and then for each set of clips, if I go on Reddit, like just all places around the internet. So, for example, we had a guy called Josh from a parkour collective called Stora. They've got like 4 million subscribers on YouTube. And I thought maybe if, parkour, there's a lot of like forums and stuff and places online. If I just spend some time with these clips and try and distribute them in these different places, it'd be like, Josh from Stora did this. Maybe that will work. But generally, the model beforehand was, okay, we'll try and work with these people. Then you rely on those people to help you promote it, i.e. Zach and Jay. You think, I've worked with this big person, they will then help me distribute. And it doesn't always work like that.
No, I hate asking of things from people as well. So like, it's awkward in the social media thing when you do, because you've already, the question for me is like, I've already got them on the podcast. That for me is like, I respect you for that. And then you're going to say, can you also promote my content? And it's a bit like, I feel too guilty doing that. I do the subtle tag, and then what will be if you tag people on the story. And to be fair to Jay, he shared it, so fair play to him for that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I feel like as I did want to caveat that I am in it. Like I said, these last 2 days have been quite a negative headspace, so it's quite a dreary conversation from me. But there are good things to be cheerful about as well. I think it's interesting. It's important to note, and this is part of the development journey. Is you find out when, you think you start this journey, creative journey, like I'm going to create $1 billion company, and then now it's like, how do I create a podcast that gets, it gets listeners? And it's like, these are exciting projects to be a part of, and I think everyone should start them. But it's interesting how like a little spark of motivation you get to, and you think that's what you want to do, and then how it kind of like just evolves as time progresses. I think you just got to do things that constantly evolve you, I guess, as a person, and persevering on a creative project is one of the most sort of like developing things you can do, in my opinion.
I'm a vastly different person from when I started. So the reason it's called Dropout, the reason I started was I was studying politics at university for no reason at all. It was just what I was kind of better at A level. And after 2 years, I'd had enough. Like, people were even giving me shit that politics was an easy subject at uni and all this shit. And I was like, why are people giving me shit about something I don't give a fuck about? And I don't care about any of this. I don't like any of this, like, environment. I do not care. And I'm being made to feel stupid in this environment. And I just, like, lost it. Like, and then my grades started getting bad. Because when you get in that negative, like, I'd always got by, but when I got in this negative headspace, I just couldn't bring myself to work, and then you're like, okay, my grades are shit as well, and it was just like a spiral within a few months. And I had a girlfriend at the time. I don't know why. Like, I probably should have never got a girlfriend at that time, and it was my first ever girlfriend, and having to meet her family and all this shit. Then I felt even more stupid because they were like quite intellectual. So anyway, big downturn, and I just went back after Christmas that year to uni, and I just went in and said, I want to leave. And it was so easy to leave. I was like, wow, that's it.
What year were you in?
I was in my 3rd year.
You didn't even know what you were in, geezer. You must have been so off the boil. Final year then.
yeah, final year, and I was just so like, and no one understood like in terms of because I hadn't really expressed any of this to anyone, and I just like, and all my friends were just like, what? Like, but I was in Liverpool and I was living there, and I was just like, yeah, I'm done, I'm out, that's
Yeah,
it,
nice.
and dropout came about, and I just thought, what do I like doing? And I said, I feel like I'm kind of a people person in a way. I like talking to people. Always in school, always talking too much. Always the teachers always cutting off my conversations. I used to hate that. When you're having a good conversation in class, and they keep stopping and you keep trying to go back to it and shit like that. I hated being stopped, like expressing myself and doing it with other people and hearing their side as well. Okay, I thought, okay, I just want to, and I also love people talking about their passions. If someone gets like balls deep into World of Warcraft and the motion and the way maybe that's where the comedy comes in, it's very emotive, then I'm like so into it. I love that passion for anything. So I borrowed a camera and I just started taking portraits of people, and I'm not a photographer either, so some are a bit shit, but some are actually all right. And I just talk to people about what they're passionate about. So I identify people, and they weren't close to me. It was just people around, like people on my football team, or I knew. And I had like a girl that was a really strong vegan. I had a guy that was super into streetwear. I had guys that made some beer in their garage, like all these different people. And then, photographed them and interviewed them, put it in like a blog. And then when my friend Tom came on board, who's a graphic designer, then we developed it into a more of a, okay, let's actually feature significant projects and people. And then it became, okay, everyone does that. What do we need to do? Highlight the projects that are actually making the world a better place, whether that's socially or environmentally, because there's absolutely tons. And that was the development of it.
Nice.
And I came from a background that I was awful with computers, like IT, I kind of rejected because growing up, I never was interested in video games that much and none of that. So I had to start to learn all that. Like my friend Tom, whenever I'm on the laptop next to him, it's embarrassing because he's always like, he's like, oh yeah, you want to control, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like if Premiere Pro or anything like that, I'm like, so slow. Like,
man.
Wow. And but all these skills and like interviewing people and just like, and we've done a graduate project thing where we like had loads of students from creative uni submit their work, and we picked like the best 5 and featured them. We've done videos, podcasts, and I like 4 years ago had not done any of that. None of it. So even though I'm not a billionaire like we say, you have to look back sometimes and go, wow, like look at all those skills and experiences I've accumulated through doing this project. And I think that's why I urge everyone to, whenever someone says, oh, maybe I'm thinking of doing this, I'm so like, yes, like do whatever, because I'm very much in the mentality, you win or you learn from it. Like they're the two outcomes. And I also like have a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I hate people that always, because doing it, always had some people that how hard that's going to be. How all that. And I hate those people because you got to be real sometimes. But like, fuck you. Like, we want to make things, and like I say, you win or you learn from it. So I'm everyone's cheerleader.
Do you know what? Yeah, mate. I can see that in you, and I envy that you can do that as a character, because like I've been guilty of it. Like naturally, like generally, not naturally. Generally, if someone comes to me and says, I want to do this, and if I think they're a person that, I think everyone is a person that can do whatever they say. But if it's like Ollie, for example, who we've created the podcast together, he's created his recruitment company, but he's also come to me. He's one of my best friends, and he's come to me recently and been like, I want to do this, I want to do that. I have been guilty of being like, mate, like, what are you trying to fill the void here? Because you've got this, you've got that. Why do you need this and why do you need that? Because when you spread yourself to try and do 4 things, it's like what are you trying to do here? Because I don't personally
agree with that. I agree with that. Like spreading yourself thinly, I I don't think it's the way to go. So I do agree with that.
Yeah, but I have been guilty of it. But then I'm the sort of person, I beat myself up about that sort of thing. I go home and be like, why have I negging people? Like, fuck it, what? But I come from a point of view of sometimes where, like, I was quite guilty of it with this coronavirus as well. Is because I have quite a sometimes I can think quite negatively. When I was looking into this properly, I I had decided in my head, this is what's happening now. This is going to happen, and I don't decide that from a point of view that I want to be right. I just like so when Ollie had to pull one of his projects, he's like, oh, I didn't want to tell you because you're always right, whatever. And I'm like, mate, I don't want to be right. I am looking out for you in a way, in a sense, like I'm not trying to shit you down because I want everyone to be creative, but I also want you to think like I don't think you I don't think this is you're doing this for the right reasons. I don't think you're wanting to create that because you want to create I don't want to shit on what it is that you create, but I don't think that's what you want to create as a person. I just think that you're trying to fill different voids enough, and that's fine. It's just that's my opinion, and sometimes I can't help but say that. But say, for example, another one of my friends who's never created anything in his life, he came to me and said, "I've got this idea." I'll be like, "Yeah, mate, do it." But some people who are already on that scene of like being a creative, trying to do things, I do sometimes say, "Mate, I don't actually think that's the right thing for you. I don't think it's a good idea." But I'm not. Yeah, generally speaking, the Tom, Dick, and Harry that come off the street and tell me that they've thought of this, I'd rather just be like, yeah, mate, you can do that, you can do anything, you can do this. But there are times I feel guilty when I do shit on things, and also with Ollie, I guess that sometimes because we created something together, it does come from a point of jealousy in the sense that not jealousy, but like I would be like, I'm creating this for the podcast, I'm doing that, and he does pull his weight as well, but do you really need to create another thing? Can you not just put more attention into this? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that those sort of situations happen. But yeah, generally speaking, if we're talking about like people that who that they're comfortable, um, they don't want. I think what it comes from sometimes is like you're quite comfortable with your life. You're getting a decent enough sort of salary, you're in a good balance. Somebody else to start throwing shapes at you saying, oh, you should be doing yoga, you should be doing meditation, you should be starting your own business, you should be doing this. It can sometimes be a bit like, no, 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 I'm fine here. And you like, I don't think you should do that either. I think some people, when people see other people doing creative things, I think it internally questions you, like maybe I should be doing those things. And sometimes you just don't want to hear that, do you?
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. Like Tom, who I work with, takes on a lot of projects because he works freelance, and sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating because he does a lot of the graphics. A lot of the work we make is very dependent on his output of like making that thing, and it has frustrated me before. Not to a point where I criticize him for it because that's his living and that's what he does.
Yeah.
And I think we're fortunate that we've been friends since we were 4. So, he's like a brother. So I let it go because what else can I do? But yeah, I get that sometimes. I'm like, mate, can we just like do this? Like, can we do this thing that we're working on? But in the same way that like I'm sure I do things like when I go off and try and do comedy or stuff like this and that. I mean, I had a football blog and a podcast, and then one day no one was listening to it, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I have this great website that some people actually care about, and I'm trying to do a football blog as well. I was like, and that was a realization of like, that's when I realized, you can't thinly spread yourself. But I also get what you're saying about, oh yeah, people being like, you need to meditate, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, with that stuff, I think let's be real sometimes, we're all human beings, like in the terms that like we all have times where we just want to, play PlayStation or do things like that. You can't be the idealistic human being all the time. There's not enough time in the world, and maybe I am wasting a bit of time, but fuck it.
How do you beat yourself up over like what I find quite difficult? And I was chatting to my mum about this just now because as I said, just a bit more context because I keep saying this negative headspace, but I found myself like I realized today when I went outside I hadn't actually left the house in 2 days, which was like what the fuck am I doing? But I think because I'm shifting my focus from doing like long distant runs and more to like getting my house in order with my diet, so I've been focusing on that, which has been going well. But yeah, I noticed as I went outside, I was thinking a lot, and I was thinking like, right now I'm reacting very angrily to a lot of things, and like I'm getting really agitated, and then it's like, what should I do? You should do some meditation, and then I'm like, okay, but we've tried that, Ian. Like, you've been saying that for 5 years now. That and then that spurs off another bit. You get irritated at that because you're like, oh, I know I could meditate, but that hasn't really worked for me. But I think I'm coming to the meditation thing. I think it's more like the breath work I want to focus on because I've done that before, and I think you could even take 3 deep breaths now, and you'd instantly feel calmer. And that's like with those kind of things for me with self improvement is because I'm not I'm not that good at like long termism with it, so I don't think that's a word. But for example, like meditation, I think you might not instantly feel better, but if you were to do something like deep breath work, you can instantly feel it. So then it's like, oh, that actually has calmed me down. Like cold showers are some like another thing. Like you can instantly feel like alert and like freezing when you do one of those. But yeah, that was further context. But yeah, it's the self improve. Yeah,
Just in terms of those things, you don't have to meditate necessarily. It's just finding out what makes you click, and I think that's the kind of the biggest challenge of when you're probably from say 16 to I was going to put a cap on it of like 30 or whatever, but like it's probably not. I think
yeah,
as
yeah.
older you realize that it doesn't click at any point. But for me personally, like sports are always a great thing, just to get you in a different space. Like I go out running a lot, and I find that difficult, like physically, and that can my mind. So that's good. Also, I've worked out the perfect amount of time to have a nap, which is 24 minutes.
Yeah.
So I like the other day I was being useless all morning. Like I was on YouTube just all day, like looking at rubbish, and I know I had to contact X amount of people to come on the show, and I was like, okay, reset, go have your 24-minute nap, come back, and be determined as you go into that nap that when I wake up from this, it's time to go. And I was thinking, is this a form of meditation? Like, is this my own form of I'm not sat in a certain position, I'm not breathing a certain way, but I'm taking the time to myself to calm down and relax. And I mean, we had a Buddhist monk on the show.
Nice.
And we asked about meditation, and he was like, yeah, his mind like goes off, and he said just stay in that space and wait for it to come back. That's not meditation. Isn't about necessarily the pure discipline of being still and present in your mind. That your mind goes off sometimes.
Yeah.
And it was refreshing hearing a Buddhist monk say the exact they have the exact same feeling that we all have in terms of trying to do these things and them not being perfect.
Yeah, the napping is an interesting one because it sounds like you found the sweet spot, but there's definitely if you go over that sweet spot, it can be detrimental. You wake up like fuming, like why am I feel like shit.
Mate, when you wake up at like sort of 7 or 8 p.m.
Yeah, that's
supposed to be starting to wind down, and you've just woken up from like 4 hours. Like at uni, I was the worst for that. So 24 minutes has been crafted over years.
Yeah.
Experiments.
I'll try that.
It's actually 24 minutes and 13 seconds. The 13 seconds allows for you to get, in after you press it on your phone to then, it's like you've got 30 minutes to get set up, and then the 24 minutes is all yours. And normally I wake up on instinct at with 10 seconds to go.
Nice. Yeah, we had a sleep expert on ours, and she does a lot of she works with like a lot of Olympic athletes and helping them optimize their sleep because obviously at that level of sport, like marginal gains and whatnot, but also at that level of sport, they're wired like their minds are just racing, as you can imagine. Like they're supposed to do visualization work, obviously for the events they participate in, and that can take control of you. And she had said, yeah, essentially the even if you don't nap, but if you were to just lie down for 20 minutes, like it's basic. Even if you don't feel like you've gone into different sort of sleep cycles, you have essentially slept because you're so still, and and your body's like recovering the energy that it needs, and it's supposed to actually help your nighttime sleep. If you give yourself the moments of stillness during the day, then when you finally put your head on the pillow in the evening, then you're unlikely to be thinking about your mind's going to be a bit more at ease because you've already thought those thoughts earlier in the day. So I think her biggest sort of my takeout from her interview was to improve your sort of sleep in the evening. It is napping. It's taking moments of stillness throughout the day. I know that's a fundamental reason why at the moment my like sort of mental health is varying day by day, because like it's so easy right now to not go to bed, and not like tubes and travel to work is a big factor why people go to bed earlier for their working day, because you've got to be up at like 6 to get in to get past, sorry if I'm not allowed to swear, to get on the Northern Line, like to get on there, you people are having to get up at like 6 o'clock or 5:30 to get into work for 9. Now, right now it's like I'm starting my working day at 10 a.m. That's when all my colleagues are starting. So essentially, if you're to think of 8 hours sleep before you start work, I could go to bed at 2, but and still got 8 hours. But I think it's scientifically proven that 11. I don't know what it is, the science is, but nearer to 11 to go to sleep, and nearer to 5 is scientifically like the best time for you to sort of sleep and wake up. That's where your body's sort of naturally programmed to do. But it's very easy for me now to like, well, yeah, I can just keep playing the Xbox till 1 a.m. and still wake up at 9, and I've still got 8 hours sleep. But I've felt like trash doing that.
Do you have dreams? Like, do you have bad dreams or good dreams?
Um, Mate, I actually fell in love with a girl in my dream the other day. I woke up, it was really weird. I woke up like I'm in love, and I didn't know who it was. It was the weirdest feeling. So I get quite vivid dreams. I've taken CBD at the moment, and I've been doing 2 drops. It's quite a strong one, and I think that's given me some quite like high level dreams. I quite enjoy dreamings though. Dreams. I quite like look forward to it. I like that feeling of being like I'm quite because of a negative experience I had in Ibiza, where I came back from Ibiza with like a big lack of sleep. Like barely went to sleep for a week, to be honest. I came back and I got sleep paralysis quite bad, and I had that. Have you had that before?
No.
Yeah, so basically it was the weirdest thing, because the first time you get it, it's the most petrifying, but you basically go to sleep and you can see everything around you, and you think you're awake, and like really weird things start to happen. Like, because you think you're awake, you think that you're dying, because it's really quite dark the first time it happens, because I could see my mum on the couch, I could see the television, but I couldn't move. So and because I'd come back from Ibiza, I was in my head like, oh my God, I'm dying here. But essentially, it's just because you've got a serious lack of sleep. Your body, I don't know what it is, but it can't get through the REM cycles like properly. So you're kind of in a deep sleep, but also in a light sleep. You can see everything. And if you don't realize that, it's like you're trying to turn and you can't turn. So obviously you're like panicking. And yeah, I had some weird thoughts. And I went to, I actually, this is quite embarrassing. I actually had to go to the doctors because it happened 4 times in the space of like 2 hours. And I went with my mum, and the doctor's like, have you been taking any, yeah, you know what? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, I think I might have, yeah. And yeah, from then on I bought like a face mask, and I became a lot more conscious about dreaming and why that happened, why that sort of happened. So when I get serious lack of sleep, it sometimes comes back. But that sort of introduced me a little bit more into sort of dream world. That state of people actually deliberately get into that state. I think it's called lucid dreaming,
Yeah.
where you because people it can be quite like fun. So I think people by choice get into that state. It's quite hallucinogenic, but if you're not aware of it when you get into it, it can be like really weird.
Yeah, I don't like dreaming because for me that's my time to rest. I'm like I don't need a movie in my head. Like this is my
Mm.
to chill. I mean, when I had gone through bad periods of my mental health, like when at uni and stuff, I sleepwalk really bad, and I had the sensation when I was younger that I was dying, like in a similar way to what you were talking about, and it took me years to attribute that to my poor mental health and periods of anxiety. Like I used to get it every time I moved house at uni. I used to sleepwalk, I have really bad sleep,
Jeez.
and I don't get it anymore. And if I do get it now, I've had it so much that I'm in that state, but I go, you're not dying, you're fine, and I go back. But when it does creep back into my life, I think it's an indicator that something's wrong, and it's often triggered by alcohol as well. So if I'm like down on myself or something's playing on my mind and I drink, that's like nightmare me, sleepwalking me. It's like, here we go, lads.
Jeez, man, I'd be scared of that.
So that's something I've had to work on, and I bought an eye mask as well, and I've gone through long periods of not drinking and not smoking weed or anything because that was happening to me. So yeah, I'm interested about dreams. I mean, Tom, who I work with, always talks about lucid dreaming and dreams. He loves dreams. He's always flying through the sky, and I'm dying, mate. Like that's my dream. So like, I'm always like, no, that's my time.
Nice.
But I wanted to ask you as well, not related, moving on, about your football team, about football, because I didn't know that until you sent me. Well, you sent me the team yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah. So it's weird because it didn't really start off as like to be a team, but how it started off. My cousin, what years are we going back to? I think about 2017. He basically studied business with Spanish at Bath Uni, and he'd always had in his head that he wanted to kind of move to Spain. He wanted to move to a Spanish-speaking country. He wanted to be fluent, and in the summer of 2017, I remember it quite vividly. I was at I think it was my mum's birthday party, and my auntie, my cousin, I set up FC Not Alone. So my auntie was saying that Matt was really like struggling whilst in Spain with his mental health, and he was saying he wanted to come home. And I remember being like, he needs to just. I'll probably use the phrase "man up," to be honest. Like it was across that my level of naivety on this whole subject. Then, even though I had battled with my own things a lot, I just kind of thought he was being a bit milky, and I was saying, it's only 2 months. Tell him to stick it out because he'll appreciate it. That at the end, and it turns out that he was in a really, really bad place. I'm not really sure what triggered it. Sometimes, obviously, with depression, it doesn't need to be a trigger, but there was an accumulation of things that he thought kind of triggered it. I think it was always surface level that he was going to get into this state of depression, but being there, I think being isolated when you think of doing a language, like moving to Spain, you kind of think, I'll be in Barcelona or I'll be in Madrid or whatever. But having been to Spain quite a lot, if you go into like an isolated part with nothing around, it can be and with a family that, you don't really want to be around, it can be quite isolating. So anyway, what happened, and he got into really sort of dark period in his life. And because we'd always had a bond around football growing up, but we were never really too, like he wasn't, like, I've got a lot of cousins, so it's not like we were that tight, but we'd always like chat here and there about football, and we got on well. And yeah, because I'd noticed like in myself around that time that I had just basically, I'd say through grievance, I was going through a certain level of like depression or struggle back then, and because I'd kind of had that, like coming out of that, I took it upon myself to really sort of like try and be there for him. And I remember just like sort of like knocking away, really trying to give him advice. And then I started to realize over time and through learning that, the worst thing you can really do to somebody going through that sort of level of mental health is not to try and like help them, because you can't really. You just have to just show that you care, show that you're there, listen where you can. It's very hard to listen to people without like trying to make recommendations, and that's only something that you learn as you get older, because we all try and do our best, but ultimately if somebody's telling you how much they want to like do this to themselves or how much they hate themselves, you do constantly try and like revolt and be like, mate, you're amazing. You've got so much to look forward to. You got this, and we try our best, but ultimately that doesn't really, the person I don't think truly can get out of these hurdles unless they can find a way within themselves to get them out. And unfortunately, a lot of people can't do that. And it's not to anyone's fault. It's just, something can trigger in people which brings them out of it. Obviously, medication can help. Obviously, the right therapy can help. But ultimately, I think all therapy guides you towards a process where you have to be able to sort of like get that inner burn to make yourself better. It's quite hard to talk around the subject because you don't. Yeah, I think I explained it quite well. But yeah, that was going on, and this went on for like sort of 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. I was seeing him quite infrequently, but like always trying to get him to play football because he's a really good footballer and he enjoyed that. We managed to play. I got him to play a game, and he came off and said that was like one of the best experiences he's had for like the last 4 months because he was pent up inside, like not wanting to do anything. So it was there, and yeah, thankfully, we come from, or he comes from like a quite a fortunate background. He was able to afford some good care. He was able to come out of that, and yeah, he I'm not sure if you're aware of the campaign Project 84, but essentially I think Calm, the suicide prevention charity, were the first to really sort of move the needle with the stigma associated to mental health. I think what was quite a really impactful campaign, I think it was like April 2018. Um, they they basically used the stat 84 men in the UK every week take their own life, and they took over for Mental Health Week the ITV studios, and they put like 84 statues to resemble the 84 people that take their lives every week, and the call to action was to basically to do a petition for the government to try and get a minister for suicide prevention, because we're having all of this, like, people are suffering with negative mental health, but there's no sort of there's not funding from the government or whatever to try and help with it. He had posted about that on his Facebook. I was like, really proud of him, because I think that was the first time he told the world why he had to drop out of Bath, well, for a year, what had gone on, and that was like him breaking, I think, like, he was very kind of like ashamed of it, he's a very like academic student, so he was very ashamed of the fact that he dropped out. The associations to be a dropout, what it's like, your mags dropout. He was quite ashamed of that, and he's always held himself, even with his GCSEs and A levels or whatever, he's always held himself as like an A-star student, and I think he was beating himself up a lot about that. So it was really like a proud moment for him to post it on Facebook. I said, there's this charity Calm, which he was talking about. Why don't we try and raise money for them, and just start associating ourselves with them? I think a lot of people in life want to try and help, but they never know what to do. And I think a charity or a cause just gravitates naturally towards you in life. Some people raise money for various things because various things happen in life, and that kind of happened with us. And we met with Calm. We decided to do like a World Cup football tournament. Seven-a-side World Cup football tournament coinciding with the actual World Cup that was happening. And me having that like background in, entrepreneurship, creativity, business, whatever, marketing, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like, I'm passionate about this. We can actually help people. Let's do the tournament, but let's actually give this thing make it a thing, and let's keep doing more activities. Let's not just do a tournament and that's one-off raise money. Let's come up with a name, an entity, and just, this is something that we'll grow with as we get older, and we'll be really proud about, because we look at it now and it's like, that's what we created through a really negative circumstance, and it's the proudest thing he's ever done in his life, and it's definitely one of the proudest things I've done, and how it's progressed. So it came from one tournament, raised over £10,000, and we've ended up like creating a football shirt, again linking ourselves to the charity Calm. We've done panel discussions, we've done we featured in like the FA Heads Up campaign and helped sort of shape that. We've done like some really, really sort of like things that we're really like proud to have done, and where it kind of like blurs lines is that this is another thing that I ended up battling myself. Because it was getting a lot of attention. I didn't know what to do with like my career. I was thinking, well, maybe I could just make a charity, or maybe I can just make this the thing that pays me like a minimum wage, but I'm proud of doing it. And I put a lot of pressure to turn that into something that ended up being not what it was intended to be. So it's at a place now where we have created an 11-a-side team. I was going down the route of potentially making like a YouTube football team, but that market's quite, I hate to use the word market. That scene's really proliferated, and having played 11-a-side football and knowing what truly happens on an 11-a-side pitch, it's not the best association to make to a brand that's trying to promote positive mental health, because I'm a dick on a football pitch sometimes. I can't help myself, and I don't want to be someone that's like, I would never say I preach, but I am open about my feelings, and I try and encourage other people to do it. And if I create a football team and we all come across like scumbags on the pitch, which I know none of our team are, they're very nice guys. Everyone I believe that we seem to come up against, they're very nice guys, but you know what happens on the football pitch.
It's on the pitch, you know. I love chatting shit. Like, I play up front a lot of the time, and I talk to defenders all the time. Like, that's what I just like doing. I just love talking to the centre back. If the other team's attacking and I'm on the halfway line with the defenders, I just chat shit to them. Not even like negative sometimes, I just start talking to them about stuff. A lot of the time I just love it because people are like, what are you doing? Like, why
it's weird, mate. It's a weird game. It's a really weird game because it makes people seem like the worst people on earth when you're playing it.
At fullback, I've got a little bit of pace about me, so I play fullback sometimes as well. And I love telling people, you know, if I'm jockeying them down the line, I love saying, you know, race me, go on, go. And I don't like that at all. Like, I think back to this, like, being an absolute dick sometimes when I'm playing football. But yeah, I get what you mean. You don't want to.
Yeah, so I then when I was like putting pressure on myself to make it something like big, because we've got you know, Adidas, we've worked with Adidas on projects, and because we've got basically all of the sort of ingredients to turn that into something is there. But then I just, again, it's like I don't want to be associated to something where I think like it's supposed to do good. So ultimately I'm like, I have a crossover in my head of like, when you're doing good with something, it feels wrong, even though it's not wrong, I know, but to remunerate your time you spend on a project, which is ultimately supposed to be a charitable thing. So I was thinking like, all right, why don't we try and create the world's, let's call it the world's first mental health football club. We'll run it as a charity, and essentially we're going on a mission to like break the football structure, the pyramid, with this like great cause underneath it. Wouldn't that be an exciting thing to be a part of? And then I looked into it and it was like, well, you can't set up a football team as a charity and try and get into the football pyramid. So then it was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll just make it a CIC, a community interest company, where essentially you can't make profit, but it runs as an LTT business. And then it's just like, I'm just thinking too much about this, man. It was supposed to be a nice like project to do good. And that's where I'm at with it today. We still have the 11-a-side football team. When you were talking about your photography project, actually, about passion, we've got a photography project where I work with a really talented photographer to basically we've been to like football stadiums around the country to interview football fans and just simply ask them the question with a nice portrait: how does football positively impact your mental health? Because I think ultimately the whole point of the project is, whilst I'm up in arms about football and how bad a game it is in some respects, its fundamental aspect, like the fundamentality. I don't know what kind of words that's there.
You mean the core values? Like we featured a couple of football related projects on the website, and yeah, sometimes I think, oh shit, I'm like being too biased for my like love of football through doing these projects, but like the core principles of like being inclusive, being healthy, you know, that whole thing of like football doesn't really have a language. It's, you know, something for everyone.
Yeah.
A lot of powerful things are attached to it.
I think, I mean, because it's an even now I'm like thinking about it, because it's a fickle sport. If you do really shape your identity, like your love around football with a club, it's quite a dangerous place to go, because I support Tottenham. Obviously for the last 6 months or whatever, it's been a very negative club. And then you don't miss. I don't miss the match days. I don't miss. I don't miss I miss the highs. But because you got so used to the lows, I was like, how can I miss that? I'm just getting disappointed every weekend. But what I do miss is like freely being able to, play football with my friends freely. My identity is shaped around football, so I do think that part of my identity is not really there at the moment. And I know a lot of people, like, the identity of their life, like, truly is football. Like, in some, we interviewed some Burnley fans, and Burnley is a really small town. Have you seen Sunderland Till I Die? Actually,
Yeah, I watched that.
yeah. So that's a prime example. Football is just so important to that city, and I have that.
Fuck sometimes when you think about that, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
game is like people's lives, and they're not even participating. I fully get why, but sometimes when you get in your own head and you think that, you're like, whoa.
It's a shame, man. And I spoke about this and that I did that Soccer Bible interview, and it's something that I'm trying to, like, I hope I can get to a place where I think we do take the sport too seriously, in the sense that every result now, particularly like when I first started supporting Tottenham, they were really, like, if people can joke and say they're shit, we all know for the last 5 years they were pretty decent. But what I grew up watching was shit, and I actually was like, yeah, they're shit. Like, if we get 3 points, buzzing. If we don't, we don't, because that's not my expectancy. But as we've grown older with this club, it's been like, oh my God, we could potentially win the title. We need to win every single football game. And when you have that mentality, and then you have people WhatsApping you and tweeting you, it's not good for you. It can be right draining, because you're just always disappointed.
Yeah, when you have to go and see your mates after the team.
Oh, mate, I just get rattled, mate. I get absolutely rattled with football. But yeah, it's the project FC Not Alone. It is. When I think about it, like, the experiences there's two things that really come to mind with it, which I do look back and I'm very proud of it. When the first one was when we were part of the FA Heads Up campaign, when went to Wembley, and then I got to see my cousin, like, interact with the Duke of Cambridge. That It's just madness when I was thinking about it. Like, in a year, we've gone from him nearly, like, yeah, doing whatever, like, him being in a really negative place, to, like, him being so proud of what he's done. And this has happened in a year, and I just got to remember having this feeling like life is so weird, man. Like, it doesn't make sense how you can just have these different, like, positive, negative experiences in the space of 12 months. And then the second one was, I remember being really stressed on the day, but my most recent tournament last year, we had 36 7-a-side teams, so there's a lot of people, and Ryan Brewster and, like, a bunch of pros turned up, and they were in the group with this team called Ben's Groundsman, and Ben was somebody that took his own life, and they basically come together to create a team to tribute him. There was a few teams like that at the tournament, and Ben's dad, who I reckon was probably, like, late, I don't want to offend him, maybe like early 50s, late 50s, I don't know ages past 45. He's a Liverpool fan, and he'd messaged me before to say, what the team was in order. They were raising a lot of money for their son, and it'd only been like a few months gone since he'd taken his life, and Ben was a lifelong Liverpool fan as well. So, like, by serendipity, they were in the same group against, like, Ryan Brewster's obviously just got a Champions League medal with Liverpool, like 2 months prior, and then two of the other players, Kevin Stewart, who was at Liverpool, he was actually in this swap deal for Andrew Robertson, which was like a mad transfer to be a part of, and then another guy. So he was just, like, over the moon that he was playing with Liverpool players in a charity football tournament, and he was coming up against, like, the next big thing, Ryan Brewster, as a man in his late 50s. And I know that, he came to me after and was like, I'm obviously so sad at the moment, but that was, it was an amazing day. And I saw him on Twitter after. He was, like, talking about it, and those little things, when you sit there and you sit there in a coffee shop trying to think, I need to turn this into something that can pay me, like, a salary so I can live off it. And then it's like, nah, man, you just need to work on this project to do those, to get those little nuggets, because when it's all said and done, those are the things that I'm going to remember, when I'm older, not like, yeah.
Making, like, 20 grand that year. It's about those,
Yeah.
money goes. Like, I've wasted all the money I've ever earned, pretty much. And I don't
I know, mate. So, It's just like with creative projects, it's not, I don't think you do them out of wanting to make shitload of money. I mean, some people do, but it's more just like you just want to pay yourself to do things you want to do.
Yeah, I always say that my only ambition financially is so me and my best mate can, live the lives that we chose, and to prove that you can do it your way. And then there's no financial, there's no figure attached to that. It's just, being able to live with your family and your friends happily. And that's all I want. Like I said, I kind of rejected the whole university thing and the graduate jobs and that level of, I don't know, sort of career, because I want to do it my way. And I said this to the out of office girls, actually. I said, and that's not it's not about being stubborn. It's just like knowing, because it does feel so far-fetched when you start this journey that you can, because you're taught, I think, from school, school, university, this job, you know what I mean? Some people find it so hard to detach pleasure and work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I feel there's so many people out there that are just doing stuff like they're not interested in these numbers or in, how gas market works or like weird things like how did this person end up doing that? And I mean, it's almost better for those people. I think you're better off if you can be someone that can just accept that life and accept, work hard, play hard, and there's a distinction. It's probably a lot better for your mental health and your feeling of self-worth, because you can just transition. But I'm not that type of person. I have that complex where I have to, live and breathe what I believe in.
Nice, mate. So are you doing any other work at the moment then?
No, so it's quite interesting. So anyway, I decided I'm going to carry on doing Dropout. I want to see more of the world, because I think it's, to be someone that covers stories and talks to people and interviews people, I thought it's such a crime that I've done virtually no traveling. So I planned, like I mentioned to you, I messaged you, I planned a big trip to Canada because I'm a Canadian citizen as well.
Oh,
so
nice.
I could work and move around quite freely over there, and it's a bit easier in the US to do so. And I was just gonna see what happens. Take it slow, maybe have a little bit of a holiday, because I've been working quite hard, and obviously that only lasted 6 days because of coronavirus, which was disappointing. But my mum actually used to live there, and she came over for that first week, so she only had 6 days as well. But it was, a consolation to see her, see the city where she sort of spent her.
Which city was it?
Vancouver.
Nice,
so
man.
She spent her early 20s there, so it was nice to experience that with her and her walk around and be like, wow, it's so different. Although I remember that, so that was really nice. But before that, I'd actually got a job in a chocolate factory in South London, as I mentioned on the dating thing, and that was just a means to an end. And I was on a bit of a, it's a weird now with coronavirus, and my life slowed down. I think it slowed everyone down. But I was working 7 a.m. till like 5, 6 p.m. and then working on Dropout from probably like till I went to bed. And it was like such a hectic period, and I actually quite enjoyed that life. But obviously quit that job.
Why did you think you enjoyed that? Because of the structure of that and knowing that those are your times, or?
I think I enjoy having like a limitation on my time, because it makes me crack on. Also, I just, I think people make workplaces, they make that work environment, don't they? And the last Connect conversation I did was with the head chocolatier there, who was an amazing woman who I get on so well with. So often, you can do any job really, I believe, but if you're surrounded with the right people, it can be amazing. So, I like that about it. I've got a sweet tooth, got to eat chocolate all day. That was fun. And it was near where I live. So I didn't have to commute into central London. So that was pretty ideal. But I think it was because I had Canada planned. So it was all building up to that. And
of course,
it's sort of taken away from me. But like when you've got something planned and you're looking forward, I think that's why it's important to have things to look forward to, which is why coronavirus is such a thing. Where you can't look forward. People keep saying to me, when are you going to go back? And I say, well, I don't even know if I will go back. Say say me and you on this call then came up with the next best idea, and then I was in a partnership with Ian McKenzie for the rest of my life, or say me and Coco from dating ended up falling in love and the rest of my life. You know, this period goes on for so long. It's hard to say where I'm going to be or what I'm going to do. So, you know, that's where I was at. And at the minute, I don't have any paid work, which is fine because I saved up quite a lot of money and I'm not spending any money. So
yeah, it's interesting. The thing I asked you there about the I've had that as well, and I have it at the moment because I've gone back into working in a safe marketing job, but I like that structure again. Like, and I really needed it because I was doing 3 years of 3 years went quite quickly trying to set up this thing, trying to do that, trying to do that, trying to do this. And right now I'm really liking the fact of that you have accountability in those hours. So anything that like you had with your factory, it's like, okay, I got 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. and then that spurs you to then use the evening to do your other project because you're just in a period of time. Because if you're doing a creative project and you can technically do it 24/7, it's like, oh, I don't really know what to do. But when you can't do it, when you could do it, it puts you in a structure of really working, I think, a lot more harder and being more smart with your hours.
Yeah, we have been quite well actually in being a well-oiled machine in doing these calls, and we've featured a couple other things, and we sort of want to I'm trying to nail down a 420 special. That's what I'm working on, and then also an Earth Day special. Just look at some environmental projects. So yeah, we have become a semi-well-oiled machine, but a couple of days ago, we all sort of fell off and we couldn't get anyone on. And yeah, I had those days where I spent all day, and yeah, you're like, I got all day, I can do anything. But it's like, well, what do you start all day? I mean, you know, and trying to do write comedy is so difficult sometimes because it's very much one of those things you've got to be in the moment. And that moment seems to always be just before you go to sleep, which is very frustrating. So it's like, and I'm thinking, should I be making videos? Should I be trying to do that thing? Because I'm very much in the opinion, I'd rather try and fail at that than not do it. So yeah, too much time is kind of an enemy sometimes. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I think because we've mentioned our frustrations, I think it is also it is important to note that there's nothing wrong in this period in just existing, and there's nothing wrong in life in just existing. I think what happens is just we overcomplicate things, and I don't think that's really a bad thing because it can lead you to doing some really cool things with your life. But you know, actually, this is really difficult, and I think we're gonna need to just get through it. And if getting through it means playing shitloads of COD or sleeping hours on end or doing lazy things, then so be it, because it's just really, I don't think, we've obviously not experienced anything like this, so people are going to react differently. And at the end of the day, we probably do, some fantastic creative things are going to get built through this period for some people, but for some people, just to get out the other end, I think that's enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's that debate, isn't it? It's pretty much a debate. Do you go hyper productivity, or do you take the time to slow down? And yeah, I think definitely if you say you have those watercolors that you bought 6 months ago and they've been sitting there banging, perfect time, but you shouldn't feel the pressure to jump on Amazon now and try and buy all kinds of stuff. And I think the core principles of being healthy, of exercise and stuff, you can always do that, and yeah, do a prison workout, get ripped or something like that. But yeah, you don't have to start a business or whatever. It's just kind of look at it as a free hit, and that free hit can be starting a new project, but it can also be to get fucking good at COD.
Yeah. It's I think something spurred a thought there. It's it is an opportunity to get good habits and take those habits into your old, you're going back outside again. So if the new habit is that, wow, I've managed to run 3 times this week, well, in a year, I might as well still run 3 times a week because I've managed to like implement that in my lifestyle. But then again, if you don't, then it's fine. But yeah,
It's time if you defeat those things. That's a huge thing for me. Like I can run 6 miles a day, pretty, you know, not I wouldn't say just easily, but like I can do it, and that just came from a place of like a few months ago. I got super into running, and I then was like churning that stuff out. So yeah, if you take this time to break down those things, then when you come back to them, you sort of set those habits. I think that's a big thing with fitness because I think a lot of people, especially people that are a bit larger, they don't understand what's possible. If you've never done it before, if you've never been on a 2 mile run, it's such a barrier in your mind. It's so negative. Like, but once you break that barrier, you can stop. And when you come back to it, you've been like, oh yeah, 2 miles, piss. Yeah, I was running 4 miles, a year ago. It's just about finding the switch, which is a bit difficult sometimes, I think.
yeah, I agree. It's definitely about not going all in as well. I think like on your first one, to like you said, if you haven't ever ran and you're gonna go like I'm gonna do a 10K, it's just you're not gonna enjoy it. You're not gonna complete it. You're gonna get surrounded in negative energy, and it's gonna make you never want to do it again. But if you just like, you're right with fitness. If you do a 2K and then you go back, you probably find that the next day, although you'd be aching, and I wouldn't recommend doing it, you probably could do like 2.3 because your body quickly does just acclimatize to that stress you put onto it for running. I'm running's an interesting one. I hope I can enjoy it, but it's you go through the emotions on running, especially like a 10K, because the first sort of 3K, I'm like, I just want to like do a 5, and then you get to the 5 and you're like, do 6, and then you're like, okay, I'm actually going to do the 10. But I go through waves of anger, and then you finally get to a point of like, oh, I'm quite happy now, and you start thinking about really like nice things, and you get to like an emotional place. I think that's just me, that I'm a very emotional person, so I go through the range of emotions on a run, like anger, like sad. It depends on your music as well. I think that can sometimes like inspire what you're thinking.
I'm all hype. My music's all hype.
Is it
Yeah.
like drum and bass?
Nah, like more like kind of like Drake and stuff. People that are just so like gassing themselves up.
Is that a hype, Drake?
The people, rappers that are all pretty much like I'm the best. Like
Oh yeah.
that type of thing where you're like running, you're like, yeah, I am the goat. Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean actually.
I don't listen to that music a lot normally, but like, I think, I mean, I'm listening to, David Goggins.
Yeah.
Listening to his book at the minute, which is actually so good. Like, he's obviously a crazy dude, but the book's done really well in that. It's read by his ghostwriter, but they stop at intervals, and this then turns into a bit of a podcast. And David then talks about that scene or that moment in his life, and and they reflect on it. So it's a really good book, and it's a nice mix of like, it's really dark in some places, but so far I'm really enjoying it, and I listen to that when I'm running. So I reckon
I might get into that. He's he's an interesting character. I think
he's a bit more chilled than in his Instagram videos. So.
Mate, you need people like that in the world, don't you? Everyone. He is what he is, and I think if he can inspire people to move, like this, it's amazing. There are some things that, he's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but he's a funny dude. I just don't imagine him never. You can't imagine him ever sitting down, like not working out.
Yeah, but hearing his like how he got to this point is quite interesting. It makes him more approachable, I think, because he was like a big guy. Like, he used to have an awful diet, used to eat loads, used to be really fat, and he basically talks to where he got to now. And I think, it's good to have these different people. Like, he's the person in my life that's like, when I need to, because on my runs I'm like horrible to myself in my head. I'm slowing down. I call myself a bitch. Like, I'm like, he's that part of my life. Whereas I have like the comedian Bill Burr's really grumpy and angry, and when I want petty, I might listen to him. So they're like the different voices in my head, and sometimes these guys sort of help articulate my thoughts.
Do you ever hit yourself when you're running?
Maybe like
I hit my hammies.
Yeah.
I
was thinking more like punching myself. Sometimes get myself hyped up, but no, I'm also pretty chill. I'm gonna do it. Another book I was thinking is good that you might like if you haven't already read it is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
I've not read it. I've tried it. I've not. Don't know why. I don't know why I've not get into it. I should like.
On that one. That you'll love that. I've only known you for collectively 2 online hours. But
Yeah.
I already know that you'll love it. And think about it. When you run a marathon for the first time, I will also run that marathon with you.
Oh yeah.
It's a verbally binding contract.
Yes, lad. Have you done one?
Never done one, but I share the thing. Like, oh, that's one thing I think I need to do.
It feels like it will be my last hoorah because I feel I want to do it early in my 20s, but I just feel like the way my body is at the moment, like it could be the end of my knee or something if I do it. But I think it's better to lose.
We don't have to do it now. We can do it in like 10 years. Like if we our communication breaks down, I just want to get like a letter in the post.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I reckon in the next couple of years. I think this coming out of this will be like, all right, we got to do a marathon or something now.
Yeah, it's done. It's done.
Sweet. All right, mate. I've really enjoyed this, but I best go because I'm supposed to be doing another call shortly.
Yeah,
but mate, I appreciate it. It was nice. I hope you got some all right stuff.
So many gems in there.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you very much, mate. Have a nice day.
Speak soon. See ya.
Peace.